Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Jeremy, founder of QuickMail.io.
And this is Jack from emailsthatsell.com. In this cast, you'll hear about two new Gmail features that could change the way you cold email in 2018 and beyond. Coming up, you'll see why this update matters. Hint, your prospects are using these new features right now. Next, how this can impact your overall reply rate, plus a new way to proofread your cold emails from now on. And finally, the hidden costs that come from easy-to-reply emails.
What are we going to talk about today, Jack?
Gmail's new update and what it means for you as a cold emailer, what it's going to do to your reply rates, and what changes, if any, will you have to make in order to take advantage of these new features.
All right, sounds great.
So why does a Gmail update matter? The short answer is lots of people use it. We've got some stats here. Gmail's got 1.2 billion active monthly users. So a lot of people have Gmail accounts.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned how many business?
Over 3 million businesses have signed up to Google's G Suite, which means that they're probably using Gmail internally for their inbox at work. That's something like 17% of the people on Earth using Gmail. So when Gmail rolls out a new update like this, you can be sure that a lot of your prospects are going to be affected, and you can be sure that many of your prospects will see these updates. And let's dive into what the features are and how they're going to affect your cold emailing practices.
Why does it matter to me, really, Jack? I've seen the change. I actually didn't go for it. I reverted to the old one just because I find it like an annoyance.
So Jeremy is holding back from unrolling these features for him. No, that's fair. But, I think, that's one use case. And I imagine that others may be keeping these updates active, especially since they're turned on by default whenever somebody switches over. So it still should matter. But speaking of these updates that you did not choose to turn on, what are they? There's two of them. I'll just go over them really quickly. These are the updates that matter. There's more in the new Gmail rollout, but the ones that we're going to be focusing on are the smart replies and the nudges. Smart replies are basically 3 pre-written responses that you can click on in order to reply to an email. And the nudges are sort of notifications that you get from Gmail that ask you to write back to an email that you've already received.
How smart are the replies?
They're actually scary good. I'll say scary because it's able to analyze all of the replies that I've written in the past and suggest pre-written responses that match the tone I use. So
that's cool.
Yeah, if it finds out that you're someone who is more likely to reply like, sorry, can't make it, it will suggest that exact response. Or it may say, really sorry, wish I could. It has the power to serve up responses that sound like you, which to me is a really impressive build, or a sign that it's an impressive piece of artificial intelligence inside Gmail now. But it doesn't work on all messages. And that matters because, as we'll see, you're probably going to want your cold email to be readable.
But before we dive into that, I know you were not necessarily quite familiar to it, but in 2014, Gmail rolled out something called Google Inbox, or Inbox for Gmail.
Okay.
And they made it as a short beta kind of thing. And in 2015, actually, they opened it to the public. And I tried it at the time, and it was really, the idea was to transform your inbox into a to-do list. So each of them, you could say snooze, you could say reply and stuff like that. And I think, to remember, there were already some smart replies into it, but I'm kind of sure that the adoption was not as great. And, Google being typical Google, that wouldn't be the first product that's sort of like bomb. But this one is a major update for every inbox. And I think part of the features in Inbox for Gmail, which some people still use, I think, then some of those features actually get moved across to the global Gmail. I think they will phase out the Inbox for Gmail in the future, long-term kind of thing.
So you're saying that this isn't the first time Google has made an update to some kind of an email processor, but this one sounds like the largest major update lately.
Just in fact that this one is actually rolled out to everyone is actually making a big difference for sure.
So let's dive in. So what are we talking about here specifically with the smart replies? Jeremy and I sent a few practice emails to see what the smart replies would, if any, suggest as a reply. I'll read a few of the practice emails we sent just to see what it's suggesting. Again, this is just a sample email. Jeremy writes to me, "Hello, Jack. How are things? QuickMail helps with cold emails. Are you interested? ? So when I receive this in my inbox, below this email, I'm presented with 3 buttons. The first one says, yes, I'm interested. Second one says, yes, I am. And the last one, not really.
Already, it's not very smart. You should not add not really interested to this email specifically.
It should know better.
Not that smart. Yeah, it should know better.
Yeah. But here it is, I suppose, a use case where it did present me with a button where a single click would allow me to reply to Jeremy. Let's read one more that we were practicing with here. A different kind of call to action. This one was, are you free Tuesday at 5? So we were hoping that it would automatically present a button that added the time to my calendar. It didn't, but instead it said sure or sure sounds good. Option 3 was unfortunately I can't. So what we're seeing here is automated reply options that make sense, that work, that I would use if I was replying to this email.
Okay, Jack, but does that mean that reply rate will explode because of that now?
I'm going to say your reply rate will go up if you are sending emails that Gmail can analyze and present to your prospects 3 auto-written messages they can just click on. Simply because when we take the friction out of accomplishing a task, making things easier will get more people to get it done, if that makes sense. It's basically just taking some of the pain out of replying, which is always a good thing if you're trying to get people to do something. Making it easier will bring in more replies.
Yeah, so that means basically we are lowering the barrier to reply. The thing I'm thinking here is like people are getting extremely lazy, and therefore this type of conversation may actually require more hand-holding and more touch points. And maybe that's something we need to get used to. But if someone just click on a button, then the commitment is very, very low. And that could be slightly different versus someone actually typing something, even typing the same text. So that may actually be harder on one end to design a campaign that's, talk to the people who are really not taking a lot of efforts,
right,
versus the one that are taking a little bit more efforts. So I don't know.
No, I think you're absolutely right. We're going to see more people enter in the top of the funnel here because it's so easy for them to say, yes, I'm interested, or sure, sounds good. Like these are replies that they could be at a red light and just push a button, don't text and drive. But I mean, hypothetically, that's how easy it would be to reply. What we're going to lose out on is some of the replies that include feedback. If it's really easy just to click no thanks, not interested, we may have gotten a reply from that person otherwise that said why they weren't interested. And we probably will have to take a different approach here. I'm assuming that campaigns that have more touch points, that sort of hold the prospect's hand through different call to actions, it may take more touches in order to close a prospect or get them on the phone than it was without this technology. Now it's just too easy to reply. So that's good for our reply rate, but maybe makes things a little bit harder down the funnel.
But here's the cool thing, Jack. If we actually manage to figure out the sort of like common answers that Google suggests, then we could potentially analyze that. And then AI tool could actually parse automatically your reply and figure out what type of reply it is. So we could actually piggyback on the intelligence of Gmail to actually get to improve our own sort of like reply intelligence detection.
I've been searching for the API for this technology. For anyone interested, it's called Smart Reply by Google. And there is an API application out there. So yes, this is probably step one for automating a sales team or an SDR role. If there was a possibility, I think this is the technology that will take us there. Just to touch on something that you had mentioned earlier, it's a good idea starting today to check your emails, your cold email copy in a slightly different way. Starting today, you may want to forward yourself the cold email sequence and see if Gmail is able to parse what you've written and suggest replies to that thread. If it can, I imagine you're going to see a higher reply rate. But if you notice that you've written an email that Google's machine learning algorithm is just not smart enough to suggest replies to, perhaps it's time to rewrite your call to action, clean up the email a little bit so that it's actually readable for the robots that are processing Gmail messages. So now you may want to think about how not only your prospect will be reading the message, but how Gmail will be able to interpret what you're saying.
That reminds me something we actually never really touched on the podcast is the ability to write from different literacy level. You know, it's a bit like the politicians' speeches.
Yeah.
And we say like, oh, the level is like K-12 or university kind of level for speaking. We never really have done that for text and sending cold emails. But I guess what you're saying is that we need to dumb it up so that even an AI can actually figure it out intelligently what the reply is going to be.
No, I'm not saying to dumb it down. Believe me, I think first and foremost, we need to write to our prospects. It's like what's happened with SEO. You'll see some headlines even today that just don't really make sense, but you can tell someone just tried to stuff a bunch of keywords in there to get a better search ranking. I don't recommend doing that. Luckily, this technology is good enough. Most of the cold emails you write should automatically be picked up, but I'm just saying you should run your messages through this check before you start a campaign just to see if this message is able to be parsed by this new feature in Gmail to make it easier on your prospects to reply.
Yeah, so I see myself sending you an email like, Jack, Tuesday, available, question mark.
Right.
Okay, obviously the audience had picked up that I'm kind of like joking around with this subject, but it's actually pretty serious impact potentially on smart cold emailer out there. And I think Jack and I are just telling you that you may actually want to jump on the opportunity and find the easy way to write better cold email that not only targeting your prospect, but also the technology so you get access to easier answers from your prospects.
So one more feature that's worth mentioning, this is the nudge that has been introduced in the new Gmail. Nudge will remind you of messages that you've received but have not yet replied to. So I've got a screenshot. We'll include it in the cast notes here. But one example here, if you're in your primary tab, if you're in your inbox, and there's a message that's 3 days old, you will get a reminder, a highlighted text that says, received 3 days ago, reply, ? Right next to the message itself. So what will this mean for your follow-ups? Well, it could mean that Gmail is taking a little bit of the legwork out of following up for you because it's presenting its users with a reminder to get back to you. As long as it thinks your message is important enough, Gmail is going to ask your prospects if they'd like to get back to you or not. So maybe you don't need to follow up as frequently or as often as you needed to in early 2008 and before.
Yeah, it's a fair point. The screenshot is actually showing only 5 emails. And clearly, this is not my inbox, right? If I miss one day reply, you're already on page 2. So what good is that going to be showing it on page 3 that you received this email 3 days ago reply? So that's not going to work. That said, if you space your follow-ups a bit more, then maybe that's smarter because some other inboxes may actually be less crowded. So you may stay, a few more days on page 1. And that way you could settle, 5 days later instead of just 3 days later. I don't know. What would be really interesting is to figure out the actual stats on how much this is actually real used versus how much
12%.
Oh, 12% of people actually do click on that follow-up stuff.
Yes.
Wow, that's amazing.
Sorry, do click on the automatic smart replies.
Oh, the smart replies. No, the smart replies make sense. This is totally okay. For the nudges, I'm more like thinking, would that really be that used? Because I would doubt of that, honestly.
Right. I can't say one way or the other, Jeremy. I'm not sure if this would make an impact or not, but what it really seems is the Gmail team is making it much easier to take action to interact with any email that you get. I'm thinking that one of the issues that they're tackling with this update is they're just making it really easy to quickly reply to a message and to be reminded of emails that need to be followed up on or replied to. So it just seems like they're working on getting more people to reply to more emails, which obviously is a good thing for cold emailers here. And I'm expecting reply rates, just global reply rates across anyone sending cold emails to have a bit of a lift if they're able to take advantage of this feature and get Gmail to type up some replies for them. So this means a lot more people coming into the top of the funnel. It'll be interesting to find out if it is more work for us to nurture them to an actual phone call or a sale. But I'm thinking top of the funnel, this is really good news.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. I think it's everything that gives an opportunity or a choice different than report spam is already a good thing. And I think with an easier access to no, I'm not interested, or some sort of like go to hell kind of automatic reply of, well, wonder if there is some smart reply, like, go take a hike or stuff like that. But everything that actually promote different responses and just that, flag as spam is already a win for us. If it's easy to reject, then that's great.
I agree. Jeremy, we'll have to wait and see what this update does to the cold email community. And in the meantime, I'm excited about where it's heading. Thanks, Jeremy.
All right. Thanks, Jack. Well, there you go. For once, this is not a bad change for us cold emailers. Because if harnessed correctly, Gmail new push button replies could have significant impact in your reply rate. So 3 things to take away from this cast. Number 1, do test your emails. So Google can suggest smart replies that works for you. Number 2, it may mean more replies, but maybe more hand-holding as well for each prospect. So you have to design your sequence with this in mind. And number 3, this is probably a good time to review and experiment with time delays between email touches.
Hey, cold emailer.
Yeah, you.
If you got some value from this episode, give us a high vibe by sharing a 2-sentence review on iTunes.
Or Stitcher or TuneIn, that works too.
It's a quick way to help other growth-minded folks like us find this podcast.
So they can send awesome emails.
And make everyone's inbox a better place. Thanks.